everybody. I'm Joe Jackson, and welcome to the Military Aircraft Video Report. This issue promises to be very exciting as we journey from the deck of an aircraft carrier to the cockpit of an F-16 Fighting Falcon. Here's a preview of our feature stories.
Our first stop is the deck of the aircraft carrier USS Carl Vinson. You'll be there for flight operations that include some of the most high-performance aircraft in the world. We'll cover what it's like to launch from the catapult and give you a close-up view of night operations, the most dangerous flying in the Navy. Then, it's time to meet the newest tanker in the Air Force, the KC-10. This military version of the commercial DC-10 is setting new standards for performance and capabilities. Not only will you sit next to the boom operator, we'll also put you in the cockpit to see what it's like to work underneath this huge flying gas station. Then a bit of history for you. In the desert next to Tucson, Arizona, sits what is often called the Boneyard. This huge storage facility is the final resting place for America's aerial might, and we'll take you on a tour. You'll see B-52s stretching to the horizon, and you'll find out this place is more than just a retirement center for airplanes. Finally, from the old to the new, we look into the world of the F-16 Fighting Falcon. This hot multi-role fighter is zooming to the top in performance as well as sales.
It's like flying your hand. If you stick your hand out the car window at 60, that's how flying the airplane is.
Now there is a new version, the F-16C. And if you think the original plane was hot, wait till you see this one in action.
Those stories are coming up in just a moment, but first we'll take our usual look at some of the recent developments in military aviation. There's a lot going on, but let's start with some news regarding the C-5 Galaxy.
A milestone has been reached for the C-5A. All of the huge transports are now equipped with upgraded wings. The $1.5 billion modification effort was approved by the Department of Defense in 1975, and work began in 1982. It is now being called one of the most successful programs of its kind in Air Force history. "76 C-5As were modified ahead of schedule and for $200 million below original cost estimates. Now, the C-5As will be able to fly an additional 30,000 hours. Also, load restrictions have been taken off, and each C-5A is cleared to carry up to 250,000 pounds of payload. The familiar sight of heavy equipment moving out of the airplane's cavernous hold is going to be with us for a long time. In fact, it's estimated this landmark aircraft will serve well past the year 2010. Elsewhere, some big changes are in the future for the venerable RF-4C Phantom. The Air Force is developing a plan called the Tactical Fighter Roadmap to plot the course of the Air Force fighter development well into the 90s. According to the plan, the RF-4Cs will be changed from a film-based recon system to an electro-optical system. Basically, this means no longer having to bring information back to base. Instead, images and data will be transmitted back to base using an air-to-ground data link. Moreover, the RF-4Cs will no longer have to land following each recon sortie. They'll be able to refuel in flight for repeated missions if that's what the area commander needs. This will also speed up the process of getting the right information to the people who need to know. But one thing the RF-4C is still going to have to do is be the first one in and the last one out, going in low and fast. Look for more Boeing E-3 AWACS in the skies over Europe in the future. Both the United Kingdom and France are going to be making use of the sophisticated early warning system. France is ordering 4 airplanes while the British are purchasing 7. Each aircraft will cost about $120 million. The E-3 is already operated by NATO, the Royal Saudi Air Force, and the U.S. Air Force.
Okay. 6544 on the wing.
Boeing's AWACS is now regarded as state-of-the-art in the business of airborne surveillance and command, control, communications operations. This version of the E-3 is basically a militarized 707-320B airframe equipped with CFM-56 engines. The normal crew consists of 4 flight officers and 13 AWACS specialists. The idea is to be an eye in the sky that can look over the horizon, detecting just about anything moving in hundreds of cubic miles of airspace. Of course, a potential enemy is going to regard this a prize target. But you can bet there will probably be some of these guys not too far away just to make sure the big bird's left alone. Could B-52s be based in Europe? The commander of the Strategic Air Command says that's one way to make up for the loss of theater nuclear weapons brought on by the so-called INF Treaty. It's a recognized fact that these venerable old planes do not have the electronic countermeasures needed to penetrate the modern defenses used in Central Europe. But the plan calls for equipping the bombers with precision-guided weapons that can be launched up to 200 miles from a target and hit it with pinpoint accuracy. That, along with the B-52's long range, would still make it a potent weapon system. Even so, the B-52s would have to fly at night and at very low level. So far, the plan has not been approved by the Pentagon, but it is thought to be under discussion. The G model is due to be replaced in the 1990s, but if this program goes through, the 30-year-old giant may still be around in the year 2000.
You know, this old F-8 Crusader was one of the classic shipboard fighters. But now there's a new generation that's taken over. Recently, one of our production teams spent some time on the carrier USS Carl Vinson. They filmed some of the most intense flight operations we've ever seen. Take a look at this.
At first light, the clock starts ticking. And for the next 24 hours, one of the most demanding tests of man and machine will take place. It will seem to go on forever, and yet will end before you know it. This is the world of the Carrier Air Wing, a day in the life of the USS Carl Vinson. Welcome aboard. Before a carrier deploys for up to 6 months at a time, the air group must, in effect, get in shape for the mission it will have to perform. In order to do that, what are called cyclic operations are performed. It is some of the most intense flying in the Navy, day and night, around the clock. And this is what it's like.
They're the largest warships in the world. They're among the most complex feats of construction, technology, and organization that exists. And it's one thing, if it's not possible perhaps to grasp all that goes on inside of it, it's possible without knowing too much to grasp the externals of it, to see one, to see the boundaries of it, and to see, if you have the good fortune to come out here, to see these launch and recovery operations and have some idea of the product of all of this.
Captain G.D. O'Brien, skipper of the USS Carl Vinson. Skipper, and in some ways, mayor of a small city, one that just happens to have an airport on its roof. For the first-time observer, the flight deck seems to be a bustling metropolis, a confusing flow of pedestrians mingled with rolling machinery, planes being towed everywhere, planes being worked on, sort of an awkward ballet with neither form nor substance. But nothing could be farther from the truth. In fact, each and every person here has a role to perform. It is an interlocking web of tasks that combine to make the difficult look routine. And what is most remarkable is this work is being performed by people with an average age of 20 years old. That is just one source of immense pride for Captain O'Brien.
We replace more than 40% of about 40% of the crew every year. So there's a rapid turnover, and this well-orchestrated scene that you've described is the result of constant training and retraining of new people. The ability and the enthusiasm and motivation of these young men is a source of constant satisfaction to all of us. Indeed, for me personally, it's one of the chief satisfactions in the job.
The flight deck during launch is one of the most dangerous places on Earth to work. It is not unheard of for men to be sucked into jet engines or blown over the side, and worse. Eternal vigilance is the price of survival in this hostile environment. Now, let's meet the starting lineup in this most dangerous game. These are the players that the USS Carl Vinson brings to the battle. First up is the E-2 Hawkeye, appropriately known as the eyes and ears of the fleet. Airborne early warning is absolutely the most critical part of a carrier's defenses. The Hawkeye's huge dome can scan for intruding aircraft over 200 miles away and track up to 600 targets at the same time. Even the small and deadly cruise missiles cannot escape its watchful gaze. Next up is the S-3 Viking. It will scan beneath the ocean for submarines, another potential enemy of the carrier. With its range in excess of 2,000 miles, the Viking can sweep huge sections of ocean, and if necessary, go after a hostile target with torpedoes, depth charges, or the Harpoon anti-ship missile. Then there's the EA-6B Prowler, which does just what its name suggests, prowling around the edge of the battle, jamming hostile radars. The heart of its system, the ALQ-99 central processor, can switch frequencies to keep up with an enemy trying to do the same thing. Or it can just cruise around mapping hostile radars without them even knowing what's happening. Some pretty high-tech stuff. Light attack is the province of the A-7 Corsair. This Vietnam War vintage airplane seems to say, you call it, I'll haul it. Nearly every type of air-dropped weapon in the Navy inventory. Corsairs also carry their own air-to-air missiles, internal gun, and even a refueling pod for other planes in the air wing. It's versatile, capable, and combat-proven. All-weather attack is carried out by the A-6 Intruder, and to call it a heavyweight is an understatement. The Intruder can carry a bomb load comparable to a World War II B-29. That's a lot of iron, and A-6 pilots say they are the tip of the spear for the air wing. Here's Mike Lucky Luciano of VA-52.
We're the airplane on the ship that carries the most ordnance. And so the ship is here for us, mostly. And the rest of the airplanes in the air wing are here to help the ship or to help us.
And one of those helping airplanes certainly has managed to grab some glamour, despite its supporting role, the F-14 Tomcat. USS Carl Vinson is home for two of the more colorful and well-known Navy squadrons. First, VF-51, the Screaming Eagles. This outfit sports a proud tradition of several MiG kills during the Vietnam War. The other unit is the Sundowners of VF-111. This unit traces its history back to World War II. It was then known as VF-11, flying Hellcats off the USS Hornet. The Sundowners also boast several MiG kills during the Vietnam War. Tomcat pilots enjoy perhaps a bit more notoriety these days because of the increasing number of portrayals in the movies. And they say, in general, those portrayals aren't too bad. Sundowner Lieutenant Randy Gus King.
I think most of the things that you've seen lately in the movies and on television have been real true to what we actually do. There's a little bit of artistic license there, I guess, you know, to get the public to buy a ticket and go see the movie itself. But in general, especially the movie Top Gun was pretty accurate.
The F-14 Tomcat is still one of the premier fighter planes in the world today. Although not quite as new as the Air Force F-15 and F-16, constant upgrades have kept it at the forefront. At around 60,000 pounds full load, it is one of the heavier airplanes to operate from a carrier. But as you can see, size has not proven to be a handicap when it comes to dogfighting. This plane turns and burns with the best of them. It also sports the AUG-9 weapon system with the Phoenix missile. The Tomcat can fire at multiple targets while continuing to track even more. In the future, the F-14D will take the stage with increased size, more powerful GE engines, and upgraded avionics. So count on the Tomcat to be in the starting lineup into the next century. Finally, like some referee hovering over the action, the plane guard helicopter climbs into place, just in case someone goes into the water. So with the introductions out of the way, let's get started. The launch, like everything else on a carrier, takes place right to the second. The Cat launch is the hottest ride in naval aviation, an experience that surpasses even the pilot's initial imaginings of what it would be like.
The first few times, you know, in the training command and stuff, they try to prepare you for it and give you an idea of what it's going to feel like, but it's just like being hit in the back with a moving sled, because the thing starts all of a sudden and accelerates you down, up into the 100-knot range in less than 2 seconds. So it's just a real rapid acceleration that pushes you back into your seat, basically. But the ejection seat in the airplane and everything else is all designed to do that. So it's not an uncomfortable feeling altogether. It's exhilarating and it's kind of fun, to tell you the truth.
Now, while we wait for the strike group to return, let's learn more about the USS Carl Vinson. The ship was commissioned in 1982. A Nimitz-class vessel, she's nearly 1,100 feet long and displaces 91,000 tons. The air wing is made up of 85 to 90 aircraft, and there are over 5,000 men supporting the operations you just saw. They're controlling the flow of airplanes on the deck, or working radar screens, or supplying everything from food to dental care to television. All this exists because the aircraft carrier is one of the key instruments of American foreign policy. The Carl Vinson may be called upon to go anywhere from the Aleutian Islands to the Persian Gulf, and that means readiness is important.
It means the men individually are well trained. It means that the components in the organization that they serve function well and fit together well with the others. And it means that the spirit that animates the whole, the will to win, is there. And those are the things we're constantly working towards.
Back from the morning mission, and the naval aviator is about to do what separates him from most every other pilot in the world: land that airplane on a pitching deck in the middle of the ocean. As with everything on a carrier, a lot of people have to do their job just right to make the difficult look routine. The pattern is flown tight. After the crosswind leg, the turn to final is continuous, with no base leg. Approach speed abeam the fantail, and rolling out to final, a third of a mile behind the ship. At that point, you're under the watchful eye of the LSO, or Landing Signal Officer, who stands on a very special platform near the fantail. Further up the deck, you spot a series of lights known in Navy parlance as the ball. Both the ball and the LSO are there to help keep tons of screaming aircraft on the glide path. The object of the pilot's attention is a series of cables stretched across the deck. In most cases, they are aiming for the number 3 wire. It's been compared to feeling like you just hit a wall of muddy sand as tons of airplane come to a halt at about 400 feet, seemingly very close to the edge of the deck.
You've got 1,000 things going on at once and 1,000 things that can go wrong at once, and it's just basically having to put the airplane in a very specific point in a very precise manner.
The pilot advances the throttle all the way forward, just an instant before hitting the deck. And here's why. That is called a bolter, and full throttle is what is needed to get the airplane back into the air for another go-round. Another potential problem occurs when the deck is fouled. That is, the landing aircraft does not have a clear and safe path in which to complete the track. That forces a wave off. Again, it's full throttle and try again. Bolters and wave offs are a normal part of carrier operations, but they are not taken lightly. This sort of thing burns up a lot of extra fuel, of which a landing aircraft does not have a lot of. If it happens enough, a tanker may have to go up. But as with anything, practice makes perfect.
We generally find that when we first get out here, our grades aren't as good and our performance isn't as good because we haven't done it in a while, but we start at a level where, at this stage of the game where most people would generally aspire to from coming out of the rag and that kind of thing, and then work to try to be, the best that we can.
Now, well into the afternoon, it seems that everything is in sync. And when it's right, there are few things to compare. All of the landings are graded, and each pilot knows how they're doing in relation to the other pilots in their squadron. Since pilots aren't the most modest people on Earth, rest assured, they work very hard to get what is called an OK pass.
I like to think of us as we're like a highly tuned athlete, like a gymnast perhaps. And for a gymnast to want to go out on his beam and do a perfect 10, I feel that way when I get behind the ship and want to do a perfect landing.
Slowly now, the scene begins to change. The sun heads for the horizon with increasing quickness. And darkness overtakes the carrier, imposing a whole new set of rules. And yes, dangers. An eerie red light begins to bathe the deck, and activity takes on a surrealistic glow. Red light is the safest way to operate at night. In fact, you'll find yourself in a lot of trouble if you get anywhere near the flight deck with a bright light. Night operations are probably the most challenging aspect of naval aviation, and yet it is the part of the job that the pilots enjoy the least. But for the spectator, there is no sight more impressive than the night launch. Judge for yourself. Sitting in the cockpit is no less exciting an experience.
you can feel the you know, the rumble of the airplane, and you can see the glow of the afterburners in your mirrors back there, and of course those are all just real reassuring things at this stage of the game. But initially, like you alluded to earlier, they're a little overwhelming.
With the afterburners punching a hole in the night sky and blazing into the abyss, the next phase is already underway. An aircraft on approach for the night landing. This is the eye of the needle, that single most stressful event other than combat for the pilot. The night landing separates, in a cruel way, those who have it from those who don't.
I heard it expressed one time as, imagine standing on one side of the room, turning off all the lights and trying to dive across the room and land on a postage stamp on the other side.
This is the rite of passage for the naval aviator, and to pass through it is exhausting, but very, very satisfying.
Hear a lot of jokes, you know, that you could train a monkey to do this eventually, but I'd beg to differ with that. It takes a lot of gumption to get out there and do it, for one thing, and we work real hard at what we do, and you know, to be able to do it well and do it right, and it's something to be real proud of.
During the night, the clouds rolled back in, and the deck was dusted with a light rainfall. The tomcats sit like nesting birds of prey on the fantail, their dark gray finish made even more so by the leaden skies. But further up the deck, there is activity once more. Another launch, airplanes leaving the cat again. And again. And again, until the air wing of the USS Carl Vinson is razor sharp and ready.
In the years since World War II, carriers have been involved in over 90% of the situations where U.S. military force was brought to bear. That's just one of the many reasons why the Air Group works so hard at being ready. Now, on to an airplane that's setting new standards in the business of aerial refueling. For many years, the KC-135 led the way, but the newcomer is the KC-10, and it too promises to build a solid reputation.
The earliest attempts at air-to-air refueling seem crude and almost comical to us today. No doubt, if things had not improved from what we see here, the entire nature of United States air defense would be a lot different today. Fortunately, an incredible evolution has taken place. This has changed into this. Meet the McDonnell Douglas KC-10 Advanced Tanker Cargo Aircraft. It's called the Extender, and not without good reason. This newest addition to the Air Force tanker fleet is able to carry out both the refueling and cargo mission like never before. So just what is it that makes the KC-10 unique? Well, you can start with the refueling equipment itself. First of all, the operator sits in a rear-facing cruise seat, unlike older tankers where the boom operator assumed a prone position. There are handy refueling controls and a wide viewing window to help with what is, even under the best conditions, a ticklish job.
Cleared to contact position, forward 50, forward 40, forward 30, forward 20, forward 10, forward 3, contact.
The boom itself is a completely new design featuring digital computer-assisted controls. Operators say it's easy to maneuver into place, which can be very helpful in tricky air currents or bad weather. But the KC-10 is much more than a flying gas station, especially where there is cargo to be hauled. The extender has 12,000 cubic feet of space in its cabin and can carry a wide range of cargoes. Need to haul a helicopter? No problem. A truck will easily fit in, as well as several dozen pallets. For the first time, an entire Air Force squadron can be deployed anywhere in the world, and the extender can carry support equipment, refuel the aircraft, and carry all the support personnel as well. It saves money, effort, and perhaps most important of all, time.
Yes, I am secure.
In order to keep an airplane with the capabilities of the KC-10 in the air, there is a tremendous support structure for keeping track of every detail.
Yeah, I got a 3458 X-ray 2.
This is UHF number 2, fault not shown.
Bluetooth control. Yeah, on 4191, we're going to need that number 1 and 2 engine fan cowls opened up for jets for that TCTO 851.
Roger, also, same day, aircraft 8019, FTD, replaced with aircraft 0284.
Roger, on 4191, environmental is complete on changing the number 2 system bottle. We need to get it serviced and a time when it was serviced, and then we'll put on a 4-hour leak check from there.
And as you might imagine, line maintenance is a big part of what goes on as well.
027, get a good tire pressure check and GOC service.
I'll get right on it.
Fortunately, many of the systems on the KC-10 had a track record of performance long before coming to the Air Force. Take the engine, for example. The General Electric CF6-50C2 engines have been in commercial airline service for years. Not only that, but McDonnell Douglas has a contract to provide maintenance support which allows that company's expertise to be involved long after the planes have been delivered.
They're set pilot.
Set co-pilot. Set engineer. Altimeters.
3009, set pilot.
Set co-pilot. INS present position waypoints.
Inserted pilot.
Inserted co-pilot. Oxygen system.
The newest KC-10s have adopted the low visibility paint jobs that are now showing up on a number of Air Force planes. And now, the extender is going to take on some increased capabilities, which will make the Navy, Marine Corps, and our NATO allies happy.
902, your clear contact position 61's ready, sir.
Right now, the KC-10 is the only aerial tanker that can refuel aircraft using either a hose drogue system or a refueling boom on a single mission. But as we see in this exercise with Marine FA-18s, everyone has to wait their turn to take on fuel. Not so in the future. McDonnell Douglas has won a contract to develop hose and drogue pods for the aircraft wingtips. That will allow several advantages. First of all, it will lessen the amount of gas it takes to refuel a given number of aircraft. The new system will also give the Navy more capability and safety for long over-water deployments. Of course, the KC-10 will retain its pace-setting ability to refuel the full range of Air Force planes. These F-15s are a good example. The extender can deliver over 200,000 pounds of fuel to a receiver over 2,000 miles from home base and return. Its unrefueled range of nearly 12,000 miles means these F-15s can count on a big friend being there all the way to their destination. As a final measure of good planning, the KC-10 can, of course, refuel its own kind. So it's clear the extender looks to have a bright future. Having first flown in just 1980, one can easily envision this site long into the next century.
One other note on the KC-10. Since it has many systems in common with commercial DC-10s, development costs were greatly reduced and a worldwide support network is already in place. Now, a bit of history for you. One of the most famous places in the world of military aviation is the so-called Boneyard at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. But, as we found out, Boneyard is not quite an accurate way to describe what goes on there. This place is a lot more than just a burial ground for airplanes.
They sprawl across the desert, silent reminders of the history of American military aviation. Each airplane with a story of thousands of hours and thousands of men, of wartime and peacetime, of joy and pain. Some call it the Boneyard, but in reality, this is no burial ground. This is AMARC, and what happens here can be as much a beginning as it is an end. AMARC means Aerospace Maintenance and Regeneration Center. It sits on 2,300 acres and has since World War II seen nearly every aircraft from every service come this way. Sitting on the outskirts of Tucson, Arizona, on Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, it is, despite the appearance of serenity, a focal point of activity. AMARC Commander Colonel Herbert Grounds.
In the event of a war, like a Vietnam, we pulled 625 aircraft out at that point in time, very unstructured. And I think now with the budget as it is, we do not have excess aircraft. And I think the ones that we do have are here right now. In the event of a war, we could pull these out, and they could be regenerated back in a very close time frame.
This is where it all begins. Planes arrive at Davis-Monthan most often from reserve or National Guard units. They come from all over the world, from New Jersey and Washington and Hawaii. The first stop is the process-in section, where the fuel tanks are emptied. A special oil is pumped through the system to help preserve it. Then classified equipment is removed. Most of the work at AMARC is done by civilians, people with prior tours in the armed forces who have a wealth of knowledge.
They have seen many, many ideas come and go. They have seen many things surge through here, and they can almost pull anything out. They can pull rabbits out of a hat to get an aircraft out of here. So that, compared to putting a military in here as a military organization, would have training, would have people rotating every 4 years, for example, and that would be hard to keep a proficient workforce.
Next, the airplane is prepared for storage with the application of products designed to protect it from the elements. A heavy coating of strippable black plastic called Spraylat is used. This will be covered with a white layer of the same material. The coating will keep the interior cockpit temperature within 5 degrees of the outside temperature. Without Spraylat, interior temperatures would rise to over 200 degrees in the desert heat. All other seams, vents, and drains are covered as well. Then the low rainfall, low humidity, and hard-packed alkaline soil take over, making storage for many years possible. And this is not only a storage facility. Aircraft are routinely brought in from the desert to provide spare parts for planes still on active duty. During 1 year alone, AMARC provided the Defense Department with some 50,000 spare parts, worth $148 million. Each part is as carefully prepared for shipment as a new and more expensive replacement.
But of the $22 million that comes into AMARC, we put out $274 million. That's putting another aircraft out into a using activity, putting another part out that they need out there, either on a priority basis or on a routine. So basically, for every dollar that's put into AMARC, we produce $12 back to the economy.
This is a money-making proposition. But along with the success story of AMARC, there is also the history that comes through here. Out on the desert, you can find everything from F-105s to F-4s to seemingly endless rows of F-106s. And even the first Boeing 707. Aviation heritage is important, and public tours are regularly given.
We have about 40,000 people that travel through here in a year's time frame. A lot of retired come back here, and the sad thing, we only have 2 times they can tour, on a Wednesday or a Saturday. We have a lot of people here that tour these people through. And I think it's a good thing. They need to know what we're doing with their aircraft.
It is not at all uncommon for an airplane to come out of storage and be back in service. Right now, F-100s are being taken out of storage and turned into drones for live air-to-air missile exercises. As you can see, getting the Spraylat off can be a bit more difficult than putting it on. The A-6 intruders in the inventory are getting new wings and are being upgraded as part of Navy plans to increase the number of carrier air wings. For a time, some A-6s have been stored here at AMARC, but now they're coming back online. The preservation job is often so good that the process of getting the plane airworthy again can be accomplished pretty quickly. And before you know it, wings that have not known flight for years are strong and airworthy again. Regular line pilots then come to Arizona to pick the airplanes up. Lieutenant Commander Don McSwain.
Come down here and you see all these guys, and they're not military, they don't work for you, they work for the military through civilian contractors and such. And you really have to shake your head when you first see them, but it's a bunch of good guys. They really know what they're doing. I've had a few minor problems with airplanes, and they've always been able just to fix it right away. And it's amazing if you tell them what is wrong with your type aircraft, and they know exactly what you're talking about. And they work on 2 or 3 different kinds of airplanes, and that's impressive.
Just before flight, the crew performs the last chance checks. This is always done even with active duty airplanes. But when a plane comes out of AMARC, the last chance inspection takes on special significance. Still, this is the best and most economical way to add aircraft to the inventory.
The cost of a new A6 would be probably in the order of about $30 million apiece. So to store these and bring them out when we need them is saving us quite a bit. I think the cost to get this thing in the air is probably on the order of $1 or $2 million. So that's a big savings.
Success. And this is a story that can be repeated often if the need arises. AMARC is also where many museums come to find airplanes. And provided the situation is right, officials here can put a warbird in your community.
Basically what they do is end up saying we need to have this aircraft and this aircraft. They will go to that respective system program manager, and every aircraft that's here has a system program manager assigned. If he can declare that thing excess and it can go to that museum, it does so. And then we have it here, the museums come here, and then we move it out.
There is also the feeling the pilots have for the airplanes. Many come to visit Davis-Monthan after they retire, hoping to find that special airplane they once flew. And many times they actually do. That, too, is part of what goes on here.
Well, I think we have a number of aircraft here that have a lot of history behind them. The 105s, the F-100s, we're having the Harriers now, the 106s, and I think when the pilots that have flown those aircraft come through here, you see a tear in the eye that, hey, they're here, and we're doing the best we can to make sure that they'll be able to regenerate out here in a fast time frame.
In all, there are more than 2,500 aircraft here in the Arizona desert. The Air Force, Army, Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard all count on AMARC to, in effect, manage a resource. The airplanes sent here may never fly again, but then again, they just might have to fly and fight. And AMARC is there to see that the mission can be accomplished. Not only that, but there is also a sensitivity to the fact that these are more than just airplanes to be pushed around and dismantled. Sitting here on the Arizona desert is the history and heritage of American military aviation.
The total value of the airplane inventory at A-Mark is well over $1 billion. That makes it a valuable resource, not a boneyard. We change now from the old to the new. The latest version of the F-16 is online, the F-16C. Let's look at why the Fighting Falcon is becoming the most popular fighter in the world.
Small, agile, hard to see, hard to hit, and reliable. Such was the promise of the F-16 Fighting Falcon. It's a promise that is being delivered on for nations all over the world. This is the story of the fighter that is zooming to the top in performance as well as sales, and it's now on its way to becoming one of the most successful airplanes ever built. The origins of the F-16 go back to 1972, when General Dynamics, Boeing, LTV, Northrop, and Lockheed all submitted proposals for a program called the Lightweight Fighter, or LWF. The finalists came down to the F-16 and Northrop's entry, the YF-17. As it turned out, there were really no losers from that point on. The YF-17 eventually evolved into this. The FA-18 was developed from that design, and it is keeping the Navy, Marine Corps, Canadians, Australians, and Spanish very happy. But this was the winner. The F-16 and General Dynamics won more than just a competition for U.S. Air Force orders. Originally, Belgium, Norway, the Netherlands, and Denmark ordered them to replace aging F-104 starfighters. Later, the list grew to include Israel, Egypt, Venezuela, Turkey, and others, and it will probably grow again. So what is it about this sleek airplane that has helped make it a world-class design?
It's like flying your hand. If you stick your hand out the car window at 60, that's how flying the airplane is.
That's Major John White, F-16 flight demonstration pilot for the U.S. Air Force. White tours the country showing off the capabilities of the F-16.
You know, I'm biased, obviously, but it's the best in the world at what it does. It does a little bit of everything, and it does it all pretty good. You know, certain airplanes are designed to do certain particular missions. This airplane is the first designed as a multi-role fighter. We do air-to-air and air-to-ground also. And it's excellent at dropping bombs. It's excellent at the air-to-air arena where we go up and fight other airplanes. So it does a little bit of everything well, and it's the most versatile airplane in the Air Force's inventory right now.
The key to the F-16 is power and maneuverability. The A model carries the Pratt & Whitney F100 PW100 afterburning turbofan, virtually the same engine that powers the F-15 Eagle. In addition, the wings are blended into the body to help provide lift at high angles of attack and reduce drag in the transonic range. It all adds up to a plane that will turn 9 Gs at the drop of a hat.
It's tough, but you get used to it, and that's the big thing. Doing it every day, I won't say it becomes natural or normal, because pulling 9Gs is not natural and normal, but you get used to it. You know how to set your body, you know how to tense your muscles, and the G-suit helps quite a bit.
Also, all of the flight controls are what is called fly-by-wire, that is, computer-assisted, doing away with manual control and cables. And to top it off, the stick is on the side. It all makes for a high-tech package that was years ahead of anything else when it first came out.
The fly-by-wire system simply means that they took out all the pulleys and cables and bell cranks and widgets and gadgets that go to the controls, and now there's just a bundle of wires that go back to these little servo actuators. The stick actually does not move. It's a rigid stick. They did put a little movement in it so the pilot will know when he's got max deflection. But the stick actually doesn't really have to move for the controls. It senses pressures that you put on it.
It would be nice if all F-16 pilots could spend their time doing nothing but zipping around the sky unencumbered. But in the U.S. Air Force anyway, most F-16s will be carrying bombs if a conflict ever broke out. And in that role, the plane can go low and fast with the best of them. In fact, Fighting Falcons lead the Air Force in most tactical air command bombing competitions. Right now, U.S. F-16s are on duty all around the world, from Korea to Spain and from Germany to Japan. But the early models did need some help in bombing at night and in adverse weather conditions. That's where the new F-16C will come in handy. Here's Lieutenant General Robert Kelly of the Tactical Air Command.
I can assure you that the F-16C represents an evolution from the best swing fighter in the world to the best night and all-weather swing fighter in the world. There is no question in the operator's mind about the F-16C. We are anxiously looking forward to its arrival because of the added combat capability it provides.
That optimism is based on a lot of exciting new capabilities for the F-16. The chief test pilot at General Dynamics is Kevin Dwyer.
Major changes have been made in the F-16C cockpit. These are designed to improve operational capability and flexibility. Directly in front of me is a new wide-angle heads-up display. It provides the pilot with all the flight information and weapons aiming cues he needs to keep his head out of the cockpit and on his target. The new HUD also has a raster capability for displaying a 25-degree field of view of infrared image. With an appropriate sensor, the pilot can navigate and deliver weapons by using the infrared imagery displayed on the HUD. Directly below the HUD is the integrated control panel. It's placed for easy upfront access to the navigation computer, radios, and the forward-looking infrared system. On both sides of this are two independent multifunction displays. They provide weapon and sensor control and large format displays of air-to-air and air-to-surface radar information, various sensor imagery, weapons and stores management data, as well as built-in test data.
In the air-to-air role, the F-16C is better in two ways: a better detection system and a new missile. The APG-68 radar has track-while scan capability, keeping up with 10 targets at a time. It even sorts out airplanes flying close together. Then there is AMRAAM, the Advanced Medium-Range Air-to-Air Missile. With AMRAAM and the new radar, the F-16C can launch against multiple targets and get multiple hits.
At the same time, it will not lose any of its superior dogfighting capabilities. Operationally, we estimate these improvements will increase our air defense and air superiority effectiveness six-fold.
This is what it looks like when the weather is not conducive to accurate bombing. And this is what the F-16C does to get through it. The low-altitude infrared navigation system called Lantern projects an image on the head-up display. The pilot flies with the help of message prompts, such as "no turn" or "pull up." Once a target is detected, a laser-guided bomb is sent on its way unerringly to the target. In addition, the F-16C makes use of General Electric's F-110-100 engine with more thrust and no throttle restrictions. Again, here's Major John White.
The big thing that the Air Force has gained out of that is a lot lower cost engine. When you got two people that are competing against building an engine, then you get a better price on it generally, and even some improvements like a little more thrust and better fuel economy and so forth.
The final addition to the already impressive F-16 package is internal electronic countermeasures equipment. When a threat is detected by the system, the plane will automatically try to jam the enemy radar, or in the case of a heat-seeking missile, automatically deploy flares to defeat the attack. And how does it all work? Well, there are cases where F-16s have been attacked by adversary aircraft during exercises, and the adversaries have been shot down without the F-16 having to drop their bombs or even go to afterburner. It is for that reason that this small, lightweight, agile, hard to see and hard to hit airplane is fast becoming the world's most popular fighter, and the future looks even brighter.
Once you get the wheels in the well, you know, what we talk about, there's nothing better. And this airplane just gives you that much more freedom. It has the power to get in and out of situations, and you can turn on a dime, and it's just one of those airplanes that every pilot dreams of flying.
There's been some discussion about which airplane is the better dogfighter, the F-15 or the F-16. Well, I'm sure you'll get arguments on both sides, but from our point of view, we're just glad they're on the same side, ours. Well, that's it for this edition of the Military Aircraft Video Report. I'm Joe Jackson. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.